Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Let's Get Vaccinated on HoodMed Chats. And today we have HoodMed advisor and special guest, Dr. Peter Hotez, back with us to give us an update on COVID vaccines and answer all of your burning, itching questions about monkeypox. My name is Dr. Nisi Hudson. I'm the chair and science director of Hood Medicine Initiative.
My name is Doug Slaughter. I'm the public health director.
And Hood Medicine, in case you don't know, is a nonprofit collective of scientists, physicians, hackers, and assorted geeks focused on health equity and reducing the spread of dis and misinformation. And our HoodMed Chats podcast is a chance to connect health experts and community activists to bring real talk and mad science to our audience. And today, we are super excited to welcome back Dr. Peter Hotez, professor of pediatrics and molecular virology and microbiology, and the founding dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine. He developed the protein-based Corbevax COVID-19 vaccine with his colleague, Dr. Maria Bottazzi, for which they both were nominated for the Nobel Prize in Medicine. He's a fierce crusader for global vaccine equity and protecting vulnerable populations, and one of our greatest allies. So we're happy to welcome you back today. How are you doing?
It's great to see you guys, and it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
I hope you're feeling better after your recent bout with COVID.
Yeah, it took a while. I had rebound as well after Paxlovid, so it drew it. It was kind of drawn out. It was a couple of weeks, but I was, obviously not hospitalized because I was vaccinated and doubly boosted. But it turned, a otherwise serious illness into an annoying illness.
Exactly. I hope you all caught that, because
I was even able to do most of my Zoom calls, which I got criticized for on Twitter because you're supposed to rest. I even coughed my way through an interview with Don Lemon, which was kind of interesting. So he was very gracious about it.
Dedicated to the end. Well, you're here just in time to answer some of the audience's questions on infant and toddler vaccines, update us on your progress on Corbevax, and hopefully we can get into some of the key info on monkeypox. But I guess to start, could you just give us an update on the current landscape? Specifically, we've got the Omicron subvariants BA4 and 5 that are sweeping the globe right now. BA5, I think, just became the dominant one here. What is the deal? What's going on?
Yeah, it seems to be coming in these big waves. So Omicron was BA1, and that left us before the winter ended, and then BA2 and BA212 came up, and now BA4, BA5, and they're pretty closely related. And unfortunately, that's the one that's even more transmissible than BA2, and which is more transmissible than BA1 Omicron, which is more transmissible than Delta, which is more transmissible than Alpha. You know where this is going. So this is
hashtag evolution.
yeah. I didn't think something quite like this was going to happen, because until the Omicron variants came along, everything was pretty similar to the original lineage with some additional vaccine escape. But anyway, so there we are. So it's taking over the country pretty rapidly, and I would guess by the summer, as well into the summer, this will be the overwhelming variant. And then hopefully it'll start to go down. And then I think the question is what happens then? Because I think once BA4, BA5, before they're done, I would guess just about everybody in the country is either going to be previously be infected with one of these subvariants, or vaccinated and breakthrough infection, or infection then vaccinated. And then what happens after that, I think, is a big unknown. My guess is if you've not been vaccinated, either before or after you got infected, I think the durability may not be as great as if you had also been vaccinated. I'm sorry, let me restate that a little bit. If you've only been infected and not vaccinated, I don't think the durability afforded by that infection is going to be very great. And so you're still going to be susceptible. So the key is to make certain that everybody knows if they've been infected, they still need to get vaccinated. And the way I kind of think of it is an infection with this virus is equivalent almost to a single dose of vaccine. And we know a single dose of vaccine is not very protective against these new variants. So you're still going to want to go through the full vaccination series.
Yeah,
Cool.
that doesn't. I mean, this past week the FDA issued EUAs for Pfizer and Moderna for kids 6 months and up. Speaking of vaccinations, and so there are a lot of questions on parents' minds about whether to whether to still get their kids vaccinated given either previous infection or what have you. And so thank you for answering that. But what about deciding which of the two to give their kids? What would you say to those parents about choosing one or the other?
Well, first of all, just before I answer that, just say the acceptance of boosters is not where we should be, because I don't think 2 doses of the vaccine is very, very strong. So we need to encourage more Americans to take that booster dose, that 3rd dose. Only 30% of the country has done that. And I got a second booster, and I'm clearly in the minority there as well. So probably well under 30, maybe only 15, 20% have gotten the second booster. So, or 10%. So we need a lot more advocacy on the boosters. And same with the kids. Only 30% of the country has 30% of parents have vaccinated their kids between the ages of 5 to 11. And here in the southern states, it's more like 11%. So we're looking at, for the real little kids, for the toddlers, 6 months to 5 years, we're probably looking at single-digit percentages in many parts of the country. So we still have a lot of work to do. We're not doing a very good job convincing parents of little kids to get them vaccinated. I think we've failed to make them understand how that COVID-19 is still a serious illness in little kids. I think you've got the governor of Florida, for instance, and his health advisor, his surgeon general, saying little kids don't need to be vaccinated, which goes against CDC and FDA recommendations. I think that's hurting us quite a bit. So we'll see. I mean, I think young kids do need to get their vaccine. We've had about 200 to 400 deaths of toddlers from COVID-19, which is more than all of the other vaccine preventable diseases that we immunize kids against right now. And we're seeing about 20,000 hospitalizations and long COVID. So the numbers are there to justify vaccinating your child 6 months to 5 years. Just parents are not accepting it. Whether you take Moderna or Pfizer, I could argue it either way. With Pfizer, it requires 3 doses to become fully immunized. We know that. And I think the vaccine is well tolerated. With Moderna, right now it's authorized for 2 doses. So parents might say, well, that's an advantage. Yes, but I think the rate of fever seems to be higher because there's more RNA in the Moderna. And it may be that we need a 3rd dose down the line anyway. So the bottom line is, I whatever you have access to, I could argue it either way. But these vaccines would not be authorized unless they were both safe and effective.
All right, I'm going to bring John in, actually. We have another question about infants specifically.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Jonathan White.
Hey.
I'm Director of Policy and Engagement for Hood Medicine. It's great to see you all. Always wonderful to see you, Dr. Hotez.
Good to see you.
Definitely. I had a quick question for you about infants who may have gotten some level of immunity from vaccinated moms through their breast milk. Is there any particular guideline about which vaccine to give the baby relative to the dose the mother got?
I don't think so. And that's the reason why we're not immunizing younger than 6 months, is because if they still have maternal antibody, potentially it could still interfere. That's why we don't give live vaccines, for instance, to kids. We don't give the MMR vaccine to infants until at least a year of age, sometimes down to 9 months, but usually a year of age, because maternal antibodies take time to wane. And I think you do not have to give the same. It doesn't really matter whether mom got Pfizer, Moderna, or J&J. it shouldn't affect the infant as far as we know, and just go ahead and get what you can at the right time.
Cool. Okay, we have one last question. Oh, John, did you have a backup question?
Yeah. So regarding that, should parents wait until after? Should vaccinated moms wait until after they're done breastfeeding before they get the vaccines for their children? I know some moms may breastfeed for a year or more.
As far as I'm not aware with the emergency use authorization that there was any provision made for moms who breastfeed and whether there's any need to delay. As far as I know, no.
Okay.
I think you just proceed accordingly, and it is. I would imagine that was looked at in the clinical trials.
Okay, the last question that we have from the audience about kids' vaccines is if you could explain a little bit why the CDC just recently recommended going with the 8-week time period between doses for adolescent males in particular to reduce potential risk of myocarditis.
I think we have seen significant rates of myocarditis in young adults and adolescents, and it tends to go up, at least in the young adults, after the second dose. So potentially there was thinking by delaying it, there could be some impact. Interestingly, there was a paper that just came out in Nature Communications for young adult males, which had higher rates actually than adolescents. In young adult males, the rate for Moderna was higher compared to Pfizer. So so I thought that was by a factor of 2. And I don't know if that's because the higher amount of the mRNA in the Moderna vaccine or not. And that was in a population in France, not the US. But we'll see if that holds up as well. So the point is, if you're a young male and you have the choice between Moderna and Pfizer, you may decide to go with Pfizer on that basis. But it's still just one study.
I want to switch gears really quickly before we go into Corbevax, but just to kind of clarify, because we did get another question about the CDC Tracker Maps, and I'll start with you, Doug, and then I want to hear from Dr. Hotez as well. But we're all familiar with this evergreen map that they have used for almost everything to show community levels. But I think people are less familiar with the community transmission map, which is usually beet red. So could you maybe give us a quick insight into why those two are slightly different?
The sea of green map that I used to call it, using the yellow submarine analogy. That I think is better for community health planners, because what that does is a montage or a hybrid of both levels of transmission in your community and also your hospitalization rates to look at the risk in your community. And that's useful information. But the other one that you just showed, flash that up again, that's actual transmission. So if you're trying to really assess, if you're going to go visit your kids on an airplane or go visit grandma, and you want to know what the risk of when you're traveling to that place is of COVID transmission, that's a better indicator. And you can see right now that transmission's pretty high, mostly from BA, now more and more BA4, BA5. And unfortunately that message is not getting out, partly because of the sea of green map, but also I think we're just not putting it out there as much as we should. There's a lot of transmission going on right now.
That's a very interesting thought, because so in my community, I think we're probably somewhere above 80% vaccinated. And at the worst, we were seeing somewhere sometimes between 100, 200 or more new cases on a daily basis. Now we're down to like 20 or 30 every now and then. And I've warned my neighbors that that's not necessarily a good thing.
Well,
we were
remember that's a gross undercount. So even in the best of times, when you had that 100 to 200 new cases a day, in your head you should be multiplying that by a factor of 4 because only about 1 in 4 cases was actually being detected. Now, with all of the home testing going on, and it's not being reported to the state or being reported centrally, we're talking about a factor of 10 or 20. So when you say those 10 to 20 cases, it's actually, obviously much higher than that, and probably similar. So if you were to look at a peak of real cases, it would probably look almost like another Omicron wave. It's just that
Yep.
it's and unfortunately, also we're seeing a lot of breakthrough infection in people like me, right, who are vaccinated and double boosted, and I'm going to indoor events and not being as careful as I should have been, maybe, and as a consequence, got breakthrough. The good news, if you're vaccinated and boosted, and I can't emphasize enough the boosted part, you're likely not going to the hospital because of it. Unless you have really extreme risk factors. But if you've only gotten 1 dose of the vaccine or 2 doses of the vaccine after you've been infected and recovered and not gotten vaccinated, and you get these BA4, BA5 subvariants, you're placing yourself at risk. So that, I think, the most important take home from our discussion today is make certain that you're gotten at least 3 doses, and even 4 if you're eligible, meaning if you're over the age of 50 and it's been a few months since you've been last boosted, because that's what's keeping you out of the hospital. Before these Omicron variants and subvariants were coming along, it was also protecting you against infection. And I think there is still some level of protection against infection, but clearly it's still holding up against severe illness. I think a larger question is going to be what happens 4 or 5 months from now after your second boost. Does that mean we need a third boost? And will the American people accept it? And that's where I've been asking the Biden administration to come up with Plan B. Find something else, because it's clear that the acceptance of boosters every few months for the American people is not going to go well. So would we do better with a heterologous boost, maybe with the Novavax vaccine or something like our vaccine? And I think that's what needs to be done. A good clinical trial of people who've been vaccinated and boosted with mRNA, and now you randomize them into getting yet another mRNA dose or one of the other vaccines like a Novavax or something like ours. And I just don't hear that happening so far.
That kind of begs the question, is it time to update the vaccines yet, or do people just, need to get their boosters? Because for all that I've got natural immunity folks, could you explain, some of the escape properties and what it means that they have escape properties of the BA.4/5 subvariants?
Well,
and
what
why?
it means is they have mutations in the spike protein and elsewhere that make the neutralizing antibodies you get from the vaccine less robust in terms of protecting against those new viruses. You're still getting protection from severe illness because your T cell responses, you're getting some antibody, but you're still getting breakthrough infection. Now, in response to that, what Moderna said is, okay, since we can make a piece of mRNA pretty quickly, we're proposing, and this is what's on the table this week with the FDA Advisory Committee, to make a bivalent vaccine of the original lineage mRNA plus an Omicron-specific mRNA. The problem with that, though, is Omicron's already in the rearview mirror. It's already past us. And it's not really clear that boosting with Omicron gives you much better protection against BA4, BA5 compared to the original lineage. So that data, and the FDA put a packet together that was released over the weekend, and it didn't really provide the information I wanted to see. It showed some slightly better virus neutralizing antibodies against Omicron, which you'd expect, but Omicron is old news right now. I want to know what's happening with BA4, BA5, and that's what I'm not seeing so far.
Yeah, you mentioned, heterologous boosting with Novavax or Corbevax might be an option. Can you just give us an update on Corbevax, how it's going, where it's approved, what you're targeting, what's on the horizon?
Well, Corbevax so far has only been released for emergency use authorization in India for adolescents 12 to 14. It's now 40 million Indian kids have been immunized with one dose, and about half of those with 2 doses, so about 60 million doses so far. And we're waiting very soon for approval from India as an adult booster, because so many adults in India have gotten the AstraZeneca vaccine and could benefit from getting boosted with Corbevax, as well as the 5 to 11-year-olds. So we're waiting on all of that. That should happen soon. In the meantime, Biological E, which is the producer of Corbevax, has petitioned the WHO and filed an application for emergency use listing globally. They've inspected the factory, so I'm hoping that will come about pretty soon. And then that could be sent all over the world, except the United States, which will probably would insist on repeating the clinical trials in the United States, which is unfortunate because I think we don't have the U.S. government support or the U.S. industry partner to make that happen.
We have a quick comment from Linda. I just want to throw up before John's next question, because she says, we need your shots available to those who had reactions or can't take the mRNA or have hesitancy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get, and both Mary Lane and I get letters every day, emails saying, hey, doc, I don't care what you tell me, I'm not taking that mRNA vaccine, but we'll take yours because it's a vegan technology. Animal cells are human cells, and because I've already gotten a vaccine of similar technology because it's similar to the recombinant hepatitis B vaccine, and I get all that stuff. We just don't have a path right now for the U.S. Because we're not a pharma company, we were never part of Operation Warp Speed, and we just don't have that the backing of a multinational pharma company. It's too bad, but that is the reality.
So earlier this month, an advisory committee recommended that the FDA approved another protein-based vaccine, Novavax, here in the U.S. First, can you tell us a little bit about that vaccine? And then second, is it too much? Is it a little too late? A protein-based vaccine may have helped with mRNA hesitancy, but not sure about how it would go over now. And also, it may not be as effective as amongst newer Omicron subvariants.
Well, the clinical trial showed it's a pretty good vaccine. I think it's an excellent vaccine in terms of its performance in the clinic. The issues with it, it's like Corbevax, our vaccine. The Novavax is a protein-based vaccine. The difference is the Novavax vaccine has an extra step, which is it forms into a nanoparticle. And I think that may have been part of the problem, is that the scale, it's more complicated to scale up production because of that extra piece of the particle formation. I don't have all the inside baseball, but they got a fair bit of support from the U.S. government. I think $1.6 billion and almost $400 million from CEPI, so $2 billion in public support. The New York Times reports only 42 million doses have been delivered, and I think fewer than 1 million people have actually gotten the vaccine. But that needs to be confirmed, and I think it's the complexity in making it. So the people who've gotten it in clinical trials, it looks really promising, but it's delayed things quite a bit. So you might say, okay, well, will it have any role in the United States? If you were to offer it to me as a boost, you said I couldn't get our vaccine, but you offered Novavax to me as a booster, I would take it in a heartbeat. Yes, I would definitely take it. I think there'll be some benefit there. And for those individuals who have refused mRNA vaccines, if it convinces some to finally get vaccinated, I think it's great. So if it helps address the vaccine hesitancy gap, the big issue is whether it could be produced in a large enough quantity. I think it was Fujifilm who was making it in College Station, Texas. I think they had issues, and now it's being made by the Serum Institute of India, which is a good good vaccine producer. They produce a lot of vaccine globally. So we'll see how we do on the production end of that one. I mean, you don't really have much choice, right? The J&J is pretty much off the table these days.
Yeah.
So all you have are the 2 mRNA vaccines and Novavax. There may be a Sanofi one coming down the line, but as I say, the clinical trials look pretty good to me, and it's a matter of whether they can produce it in enough sufficient quantity to vaccinate a segment of the U.S. population who wants to take it.
Dr. Hotez, we had a number of questions about monkeypox as well. Can we just get a quick 101 intro into the monkeypox virus, how it's transmitted?
Yeah, so it's belongs to the same family of viruses. The orthopox family is smallpox, but different from chickenpox. So even though we use the word pox and chickenpox is not a pox virus. It's a herpes virus like Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus. So I've already totally confused people, I know, but it's not related to chickenpox. And and I think what was happening is, for decades we had been vaccinating populations against smallpox, and that had the benefit of cross-protecting people against getting monkeypox because it's a virus that has some similarity. We stopped doing smallpox vaccinations in most places in the 70s and 80s, so smallpox was eradicated from the planet in 1981, declared smallpox free. So that was pretty exciting. But I think with that waning immunity, that allowed monkeypox to establish 2 different strains of the virus, one in West Africa and Nigeria, which is a milder form, and a more severe form in Democratic Republic of Congo. And it looks like now, for the first time, we've got monkeypox in multiple European and U.S. Countries. And exactly what happened, I think, still requires investigation. I think because of the social networks and the gay and bisexual male population, it started there first. Not that it's a sexually transmitted disease in the sense of bodily fluids, but by close skin-to-skin or intimate contact, I think it's being transmitted. There may be some aerosolization out of the virus if one of those pustules breaks, and so it's
Gross.
starting to take off, right? And that is the reality. So we're now we've seen, I think, more than 1,000 cases in European countries and U.S. and Canada. There's been 3 cases, I think, in Texas now, in Harris County area. So it's still not very common, but the numbers are starting to go up.
We
And
actually have
I
the
don't think
map.
it'll be
It's,
anything like COVID-19 in terms of transmission,
Yeah.
just because it requires more intimate contact. But the numbers are going to continue to rise. And then the question is, do we launch a vaccination campaign for at-risk populations? So what happened with smallpox was my colleagues and friends, people like Bill Foege and Ciro DeQuadros and D. Henderson, figured out the only good thing about a case of smallpox is it's not subtle. If you have it, people know it, and so you can identify all the contacts right away and vaccinate them. And the term used for that was ring vaccination. So now, potentially, you could do that with monkeypox. If you know an individual has monkeypox, you could do the contact tracing. You also have time because the incubation period is about 2 weeks. So it means you have better hope of vaccinating. You probably don't want to use the old there's 2 different smallpox vaccines that work for monkeypox. The old smallpox vaccine you probably would not want to use, even though that's the one we've got stockpiled, because it produces a severe reaction and individuals have eczema and underlying skin disease, or if you're immunocompromised, like if you have HIV/AIDS, which is, of course, higher in the gay community. So that kind of takes the one that we have the most stockpiled, which is the old vaccinia from cowpox. That's why the term vaccine comes from, actually, because that was the first vaccine. So we have like 100 million doses of that stockpile. In the event of a smallpox bioterrorist attack, you would probably not want to use that for monkeypox. But then there's a second vaccine which is made by Bavarian Nordic, which is a non-replicating virus. It uses modified Vaccinia Ankara MVA. And that one, I think, is the one that you can vaccinate. And I understand now in New York City, they are offering the vaccine to individuals at high risk based on their demographics and behaviors. And so that's hopefully one that's going to be stockpiled in more abundance. And I think that's how we can end this, is to do that ring vaccination for known contacts. So the good news is, one, it's not as transmissible as COVID. Second, there's that much longer incubation period. 3, we've got a good vaccine, not available in the quantities we want yet, but it's a good vaccine. And we also have antiviral drugs that were developed for smallpox, things like tecovirimat and brindacyclovir. So, brindacidofovir. So antiviral drugs are like monoclonal antibodies. Or everything has either MAB or VAR in it, so it gets a bit confusing. But so that's why I'm not as worried about monkeypox. The two asterisks on that statement, though, are, one, there are concerns that it could get into the more general population, including kids, and kids don't do as well with monkeypox. And then if it establishes in animal populations, rodent populations, or previously established for a while in prairie dogs, of all things, then you'd have that permanent reservoir in the United States. Then it could become first enzootic and then epidemic, and so or endemic. So kind of holding our breath on this for now.
So actually, it's true. You said that it's not supposed to be that infectious. So maybe you can break down.
Well, it's not infectious in the sense of, you're walking into a building and the virus is, somebody with COVID-19 who was just there was coughing and releasing virus into the atmosphere, and you can inhale it an hour later. It's not anything nearly that transmissible. You have to have close, intimate contact with someone who has the monkeypox rash. And so that's greatly limiting. But that's still a concern to a significant percentage of the U.S. population.
Sorry, Dr. Hudson, just one thing to reemphasize. Again, you said chickenpox is not like monkeypox, and there's rumors out there that the chickenpox vaccine will help people prevent them from getting monkeypox, and that rumor is absolutely false. The chickenpox vaccine will not help at all.
Smallpox vaccine will help you, but not chickenpox.
So
but we don't routinely vaccinate with people with smallpox. So, I'm old enough that when I was a kid, I still got smallpox vaccine, but my good colleagues on this call probably not. So
I guess where I was going with the question is that, when we started off with COVID, it was, it had an R naught of 2 to 3, meaning for every one person, you'd probably get 2 or 3 others infected. And now with Omicron, we're up to 8. And with monkeypox, it's
and BA4 may even be higher than that. So
totally. But in a short time, the incidence is we've got 4,000 cases. When we first started talking about monkeypox, we had 13 here. And now we're up to over 200 cases in just the
I think
US.
A lot of those, even though those early numbers, there was probably a lot more monkeypox than were realized, because it can be subtle. It's not, you see the pictures of a smallpox rash and it's pretty horrifying sight. You're not seeing that with monkeypox. Sometimes you could just have 1 or 2 small lesions in the perianal area or near the genital area. And so you're missing it. So you're missing it. So
are y'all listening?
So
what are you doing?
So there's probably a lot. There was probably much more than those 13 cases right at the outset, and it's probably been here for a while. We just weren't picking up. Also, I'm guessing sometimes it could be misdiagnosed as a venereal sexually transmitted illness, such as gonorrhea or syphilis, and I'm sure that probably happened a few times as well. So and you can say, well, okay, 4,000 cases, but it's not like you're going to have 1 million cases in 2 weeks.
No, I guess
and
what I was
the reason I say that is because, COVID-19 is an RNA vaccines, and RNA vaccines have that ability to mutate because they're single-stranded RNA. With something like a pox virus, like monkeypox, it's a double-stranded DNA vaccine, and so therefore you're unlikely to have that rapid rate of mutation. So that's good news as well.
No, I guess I just wanted to reiterate that a lot of it is linked to our own behavior. You know what I mean? And just in terms of the contact rate,
I see a question there. Military members have been deployed, have been vaccinated against smallpox since 2001. Yeah, I think that's going to help you a lot. I think that will likely dramatically lessen the risk of contracting monkeypox, although it still needs to be studied. There still needs to be a case control study, but I'm guessing that's likely going to be very helpful.
There's one other one that you should probably address. Is there research on a skin swab test for monkeypox, or can you just tell us what the test is?
I believe it's the short answer is I don't know. I believe it's a PCR based assay for the virus. There might be an antigen test now as well.
And then what's the incubation period for monkeypox? Do you know?
My understanding is a week or two. So
a week or two.
So again, that gives you more time to do the contact tracing as well.
And isn't it true that you can? Sorry, go ahead, Doug. I know what you're going to ask.
And is it true that you're only infectious as long as you're symptomatic?
Well, you're certainly symptomatic while you have the rash. Once the pustules crust over, then you're no longer infectious. But you may be infectious for a day or two before you get the rash, and we've seen that with COVID, right? A day or two before you're symptomatic. So there is that potential concern.
Yeah. Just seeing if there's any.
So I think it's important that you if you talk to your intimate partners and ask them if they have a rash, or if you have a rash, to abstain from intimate contact, and to get and to either isolate yourself or potentially even get an antiviral drug if you need it.
Mm-hmm. So that's the outlook, folks. How about we be careful?
By the way, my good friend and colleague, Dr. Anne Ramoyne, who also talks a lot about COVID, she's at UCLA. She's been working on monkeypox for 20 years. And would be somebody good to have.
I will follow up on that. So I guess really what it comes down to is personal risk, personal responsibility, right? Whether it's COVID or monkeypox, the masking, the due diligence if you have nasty pustules and rashes, maybe not cuddle with people.
Yeah, I think so. And the good news is I think, the gay community for the last 40 years has done a great job in terms of education programs and awareness programs. And I think they seem to be on top of monkeypox as well. So I think there's been a big effort, especially around all of the Pride events that have been going on, to get the word out on what to look for. And so that's been really helpful as well.
Oh, we have another question. Does bathing before sex help dilute the spread of monkeypox? Just want to be clear for everyone.
I'm not aware of any information about that, and I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah.
But I'll never say no to bathing.
just not together with somebody who has monkeypox.
Right, but that's right. Bathing's always a good idea.
That's a good. I think that's a good. That doesn't need any qualifiers. So I'll never say bathing. I love it. Dr. Hotez, can you just leave us with any final thoughts you have for folks on managing their personal risk? It's challenging. There's no mask mandate right now, and other mitigating measures.
Well, I think the bigger message is these are obviously very unstable times. I mean, who wants to turn on the TV anymore? I mean,
Oh my God.
between what's going on in with COVID-19, the new subvariants, and monkeypox, and all of the horror coming out of the Supreme Court, and you should see the platform of our Texas GOP, right? I mean,
Mm, absolutely.
Nightmare.
that's a horror show, and now I just it's getting a lot of press because of the anti-gay, anti-abortion language in there, but even vaccines, there's a statement in there now that every Texan has a natural and unalienable right not to get vaccinated. I mean, what kind of twist is that? So I think they're going to go after childhood vaccinations. This is going to be a very complicated time right now.
Great.
And,
Welcome back, polio.
yeah,
That's
that's what I
awesome.
mean. It's awful. So the key is keep your mental health in check. And just remember, if you're feeling stress and anxiety, or if you're getting sad, that's actually a normal reaction to a very stressful situation, and have a low threshold for getting mental health guidance and help, and talking with friends, and if it's persistent, seek professional help as well, even though of course mental health care in our country is a disaster as well. But there you are. I can't emphasize enough that if you're feeling out of sorts and worried, welcome to the club. I mean, it's a normal reaction to a very stressful time going on right now, and we have a lot of big global issues coming along. Not only am I worried about the increase in climate change and deforestation, increasing animal to human virus transmission like COVID-19 and monkeypox. We have now climate change baking the whole eastern part of Africa and Somalia, so horrific drought in Venezuela and Central Latin America, which is going to create food shortages. And now Putin is blocking the export of Ukraine's wheat exports out of Odessa. And so, the World Food Program and others are looking at potentially catastrophic starvation events in the coming months as well. So these are very difficult times, and trying to make sense of it all is going to be both interesting and challenging.
How do you keep yourself up? Because you have people like actually threatening your life right now. How do you stay up?
Well, I try to channel my energies into useful things. I do a lot of writing, which I love, and I have a new book that I just finished the manuscript and submitted it to Johns Hopkins Press. It's
Good.
called its working title is Anti-Science Kills, and really talks about all of the events, and that's been both interesting for me and therapeutic is writing, and hopefully I'll get comments back soon and make some revisions, and so that early next year it'll come out. And so finding things like that are meaningful to channel my energies has helped a lot.
And I think you definitely have an impact on people, certainly us, but also on everyone that you've been helping throughout the pandemic. And
well, as I say, I'm
loved.
I'm loved by about 2/3 of the country, and then a quarter of the country hates my guts. Or I'll put it this way: I'm loved by a third, ignored by a third, and hated by a third. I mean,
but that first third loves you dearly, though.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
much.
Well, I get a lot of reaffirmation by coming on this show. You guys have helped me a lot as well, and I love you all, and so grateful for our friendship and our collegiate and our collaboration.
Absolutely.
Likewise.
And with that, I want to thank Dr. Hotez for joining us today. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of Let's Get Vaccinated on Hood Med Chats. At Hood Medicine, we bring you real talk and mad science so you can make the right decisions to keep your loved ones safe. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to support our effort, donate to our cause, or find out about our events. Visit hoodmedicine.org or find us on social media at hood_medicine on IG, Twitter, and Linktree, and TikTok. Hood Medicine Initiative, all one word, on Facebook. You can also support by making us your Amazon Smile charity. You shop and Amazon gives, or through Bonfire at our merch shop at www.bonfire.com/store/Gorilla Gear. And be sure to come through to listen to our expert scientists, physicians, hackers, and assorted geeks on routine checkup with Hood Medicine every Monday morning at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Lurie Daniel Favors Show, broadcasting live on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126. Or join us every third Monday of the month for the Fit, Live, and Win health segment on Roland Martin Unfiltered, live streaming at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. Or you can listen on your favorite audio podcast app. Thank you
Actually,
again.
Dr. Hotez is going to be on the July episode. So it's going to be
Yes.
July 18th
Oh, great.
at 7:30 p.m. So definitely come through and he'll be dropping some knowledge there too.
Yeah, and Roland Martin is also one of my fraternity brothers, Dr. Hotez, along with your wonderful mayor.
Oh, well, you got two of the best.
Yes. So thank you again, everybody. Please stay safe, get vaccinated, and love your neighbors, and do the right thing. Thank you.